Hello and welcome to How to Love Successfully. This is a podcast for female leaders who are looking for that loving connection and making their love life as much of a success as their careers have been. Here we talk about dating successfully and creating a loving relationship. I am your host, Dr. Kovanen. I'm a registered psychologist and a conscious dating coach. For the past 15 years, I have been working with individuals and couples and help them with their relationships. I share from my personal experiences of dating. I share my observations from working with clients about what makes relationships successful and how to find the right person for you. I would love to invite you to follow this podcast to get notified of the new episodes and join my email list. You will find the link in the show notes to get dating tips and notifications of any new materials. But now let's go into this episode. Hello and welcome to this episode of How to Love Successfully with me, Dr. Marie Kovanen. And today again, I have a wonderful guest. And today my guest is Caroline Heaton Tate. And she helps female leaders master their health to gain more time, energy, and confidence to grow wealth. She is an award-winning eating psychology expert. So welcome, Caroline. So wonderful to have you here.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mary. It's an absolute pleasure of mine to be here.
It is so lovely to connect with you because we have, of course, connected previously. So It's lovely to continue this conversation this way. So if we start from really understanding what you do, but also what does your life look like right now as a busy entrepreneur and everything that's going on in your life right now?
Oh my goodness, where to start? Yes, I am definitely a very busy entrepreneur and a full-time mum with 3 children. I have a blended family, so I have 2 older teenagers. Actually, my eldest son's just turned 20, and my youngest son, my blended child, is just close to his 2nd birthday. So a huge age gap and more or less starting all over again there. My business, I'm in women's health and I'm very passionate about that. I help women transform their health from being burnt out, going back into bliss, and to actually putting themselves, peeling back the layers that they've built up around themselves and these walls that perhaps aren't serving them, and whether that be in eating senses or whether that be in a confidence way. So we really strip it back and do the work behind there before they can step into their best health. And then obviously from that stems happiness, health, confidence, and then wealth.
So how did you get interested in this area, first of all?
That's such a good question. Originally, it was from my own personal sense. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be a nutritionist because I was pursuing my own journey into family genetics for breast cancer because I sadly lost my mum when I was just 16 to breast cancer. And at that time, I was told that I needed to have testing done. I was too scared to do it back then. Plus, I wasn't being fully supported in my then relationship. I've been married before. And that was a time for me I was just so used to putting everybody else first and everything first that it took a space to open up for me in my later years for me to then think this is the right time for me now to go and find out whether or not I carry this genetic cancer gene and to then overcome the journey that would then follow. And in that time, I had previously been a very busy, very burnt out early years leader in the school teaching in national curriculum. I noticed there was a huge gap for nutrition learning. So whilst I was off having preventative life-saving surgery for the breast cancer gene, because it turned out that my chances of getting breast cancer by the age of 40 were 1 in 2. And that was something that I really wanted to eliminate for the purpose of my own children at the time, because I didn't want them to go through what I'd gone through when I was younger. So I started to train as a nutritionist purely for my own benefit at first. And then whilst I was off recovering and having this surgery, I realised very quickly that I want to be able to share this knowledge that I'm learning about nutrition and the way that we fuel ourselves up and our bodies with other people. And primarily, I wanted to deliver this message to children because I've always been passionate about teaching children. And I believed at the time that by teaching them from an early age, that would help them create healthy habits that would lead to them living healthy and happy. But unfortunately, that went well. The business did really well for a couple of years. But then when COVID hit, everything was thrown at us, and we couldn't go into schools anymore, which we have been doing. The whole purpose of our business became unnecessary and unneeded. So we had to realign. So it was during that time that I realized that I'm not giving up. I want to share this nutrition expertise and continue my nutrition learning and eating psychology expertise. And I decided that the best person I could possibly help would be women that were busy and bringing up families, or were already out there working towards this burnout. And that's when, Release Your Inner Goddess, which is a part of my business, was born.
And then, of course, from there, it spills over to the children too. So that's wonderful. So on that journey, and you mentioned that you've been married before. Yeah. So what was there, if you're happy to talk about it, what did you discover about yourself, and what was not working?
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a good question. So I was with that person from being very young, and it was all I ever knew. I was madly in love with him at the time. He was everything to me, and he really helped me out through losing my mum, and that grievance that went on there. But then I started to realize years that followed that actually the way that we were working as a couple, we weren't actually working as a team. It was very much I was giving and he was taking, and he was having brilliant life experiences. He was going out experiencing the world without me, and I was just at home all the time. And I put up with that for such a long time. Now I know why that happened, but at the time I didn't know, and I just thought, this is the norm, this is what everybody else does. And then I started to become more aware of my new friends when we had children, just that other families weren't doing what we were doing. And I just felt very lonely, and I started to reflect on the way that I was being spoken to. And at the time, as I say, I didn't know any other way, but I started to realize that I wasn't being respected and I wasn't being appreciated. And I knew I wanted more. I used to lie in bed at night next to this person who I'd known for 17 years. We've been together, and I would just be thinking, is this it? Is this all there is in life? I'm missing this really deep connection to somebody that appreciates me, values me, and respects me. Yeah, so it was a very nerving time for me, because I'd only ever known this person. We got 2 children together. We'd had this, from the outside looking in, everybody thought we had this fairy tale connection. But it was just me suffering silently and putting up with a lot of things that now I would never dream to, and I would never accept that behavior from anybody else. And that was the best bit for me. I learned so much about myself at the time. Leaving that relationship was the hardest thing to do, and it was so upsetting at the time for me and my young children. But now in hindsight, I'm so grateful that opportunity happened. My children are grateful. They've often said to me, we're really happy, although it was a very upsetting time, that you've become the person that you were meant to be, and we respect that we saw you take that decision and make that change in life. It's taught my children skills as well, to, if they're not happy, to try and work at it. I'm not saying hand in the towel ever. I worked at it for years and tried, but unfortunately it just wasn't meant to be. It didn't work. And so it was a very crazy period for about 3 or 4 years where my whole world was a whirlwind. And at that time I didn't even think about looking for another partner, but it happened very soon for me. It really did. Within 6 months I had contact with somebody, and I was terrified for a long time with the new person who I'm now married to. We've been together for 12 years. We got married a couple of years ago. It would have been sooner, but COVID kept rolling it back a bit. But it was meant to be, because we ended up having a child in that time. But I was terrified to commit, and I noticed that at the beginning of that relationship I was still healing and trying to move forward, but I was also pushing the person that was so lovely to me away, because I hadn't been used to it. So it really took me on a journey of self-development, personal growth and understanding of myself. And I very quickly became aware of the importance of loving myself first before I could actually love somebody else wholeheartedly again.
Absolutely. That is so, it's like key to everything. It's the self-love, the self-awareness. In that time, what did you learn about yourself? What did you discover that you maybe didn't know before?
Absolutely. The biggest thing for me was my very unhealthy relationship with food, and how in that time of upset for many years in my old relationship, I was soothing myself with food and a glass of wine. Just that became my pleasure. I didn't go anywhere really. If I did, it was just to socialize with other couples that were in the same situation who were just riding the wave of life. And I was just really empty, and food became my pleasure, and it was really unhealthy. I'd used food as pleasure before when I lost my mum when I was 16. And I didn't know I was doing that then, but now as an eating psychologist, I thoroughly understand that. And that's what I do in my practice all the time, help women recognize how that begins, that unhealthy relationship. Everybody has a different crutch, don't they? For me, that was food for pleasure and having the drink at the weekends. I wasn't healthy. I was so unhappy. I was so lonely and lost. And honestly, when I think back, I actually feel really emotional thinking about it. I've not thought about it for such a long time, but that person, I feel so sorry for my old self. I wish that I knew then what I know now, and I wish that I could just go and give my old self a big cuddle and say, you're incredible. You've brought your children up. You've been doing it more or less solo, even when you've been with somebody who's not supportive. And I'm proud of that. And everything happens for a reason. I'm a massive believer of that. And I feel that I wouldn't be where I am or who I am today if it weren't for that experience and that journey. But yeah, I think the biggest thing for me was creating this healthy relationship with food, and that for me is a form of self-love, nurturing myself with healthy foods that fill me up and are going to give me energy and create longevity and prevent disease. And on that journey, I became the most happiest, confident version of me. Don't get me wrong, there's times in my life where I'm still have the day where I'm sad and I just fancy staying under the duvet.
That's normal. Absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely. And yeah, those sugar cravings are still there at times, especially throughout the month. But I know now, I recognize that and I understand that. And for me, the person that I used to be, I was almost 5 stone heavier. I dyed my hair brown. I just didn't want to be myself. I was so disembodied from my body and the person that I was. And I was always, at that time, I was looking for external factors to bring me happiness, things like a new promotion at work or a new car or another holiday. I remember always being on countdown for 11 weeks left until we finish for Christmas, or 19 weeks till the next holiday. And that was not a life. That was a life that wasn't being lived. And now I'm so much more grateful for every single day, even the days when the kids aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing and I'm rushing around like a headless chicken. I'm so grateful for that. And I'm very much more living in the moment now. And I know we've talked about it ourselves, haven't we, Dr. Mary, when we get grounded at the beginning of the day with our yoga sessions, and that really helps us connect to the universe and the bigger picture. And that's something that I've massively adapted into my daily routine.
Absolutely. Was it then your curiosity about your relationship with food that then got you onto this journey of wanting to do other things too?
Yeah, I think so. I think you mean as in like the business sense, going out there and
or even in terms of your self-development and becoming curious and different aspects, and even business-wise. And
absolutely. I think it was almost like a brain kind of light bulb moment where I started to realize that what I'd been doing for so long is a form of abuse. I was serving my body foods that were filled with artificial ingredients that were man-made, and craving that pleasure at the end of the night, almost like an addiction, to bring me that pleasure. And I thought it was the norm. Children are in bed, 8 o'clock at night. It's my time to eat something that's really rubbish, no nutrients whatsoever, and pour myself a glass of wine. And that's so unhealthy. And my poor body was filled with toxins. And again, that added to my mental health being even more unhappy, because the toxins in there, my body's having to digest that through the night. Then I'm waking up with blood sugar spikes and I'm craving the next bit of sugar. And I wasn't sleeping well because of the sugar I was having in the evening. And so then I was waking up groggy, living on caffeine, craving the next bit of sugar in the staff room. It was so unhealthy. And I look back at pictures now and I can almost see it in my eyes on the photos, how unhealthy and how unhappy I was. And it's so sad.
Yeah. But it's amazing in a way that how you started from somewhere and then it starts to flourish in other areas too. What you describe, this kind of hamster wheel or the vicious circle of seeking external things to, is it fix or to change their emotional state, or is so common. Yet people don't actually realize that there are different ways and there's much healthier ways. And that vicious cycle, unless you stop it and you consciously decide to stop it, it just keeps going. And that next, whatever, whether it's alcohol, whether it's food, or it could be relationships, or it could be anything, shopping, it could be anything that won't bring that internal peace at all.
Yeah, I think that's such an important message. And for anybody who's listening that has teenagers, I know I personally have been through such a growth journey with both of mine. And I would often say to them, do you know what? It's quite simple, really. If you hang around with 5 people that smoke, you're probably going to smoke. If you hang around with 5 people that eat pizza every day, you're probably going to eat pizza every day. So choose the people and the relationships that you have wisely. Make sure you're surrounding yourself with people that you aspire to be like. Yes. And it's often the path that's less followed, unfortunately, in society. But it's, if you want to be aligned with your inner peace and you want to have health and longevity, then stand up for that and choose the right people. And don't get me wrong, my children are not angels as anybody, but at the end of the day, they've been through a learning process and they've chosen very well. I'm so proud of them. They've grown forward and they can now see what mum was saying to them years ago and making the right choices because of it. And I think that's come from my own journey of looking at who I used to be associated with, spending my time with. Don't get me wrong, they're part of my life still. I've got children, but I also know when I'm wise to remove myself from that particular company and spend time with people that lift me up. And that's definitely been something that I've learned along with my healing journey with food, along with my healing journey of my own, finding my own inner peace and getting really aligned with who I really am and what my purpose is.
Absolutely. So then, talking about the early days of meeting your now husband, and you said that initially that was quite strange.
Very.
And you were pushing him away. So how was it? Talk us through it, because there will be, I'm sure, lots of people in the audience who may be in the same kind of situation, fairly new to dating, or whether this is second, third time, or however many times.
I think if you've been hurt in the past, I think it's really hard to get those boundaries down and to allow somebody in. So for me, I think I was being protective of myself. I didn't want to fall for somebody that perhaps wouldn't respect me again in the future. And I also, because I'd been used to my whole life, basically, I grew up with the person I was with previously. So to be with somebody for so long and to only know that relationship, for me, it was really hard to then have somebody come into my life. It's a bit of a running joke in the family where he once came round, arranged with my brother and sister-in-law to get my key whilst I was out with my daughter at a dancing show, and he decorated my bedroom and ensuite. And when I came back, I actually went mad. I fell out with him, and they were saying, "Oh my goodness, what do you mean you're phoning the police because he's doing something nice for you?" I was like, I just can't. If anybody's listening, I hope this resonates with just one person at least, because it was just me in full protection mode. I didn't know how to accept somebody being so nice and kind to me. I remember my daughter being really young and she was up in the night and she was actually sick, and he was straight up with me he had his rubber gloves on, he was ready for cleaning up. And I've just never experienced that. So for me, at the beginning, I feel, looking back now, I'm so grateful that he stayed around, because I was very much pushing him away just because I was so nervous of being hurt. And I think when we're dating, we can so easily get so stuck up in the whole looking for perfection and thinking, not accepting anything less than perfect, ticking boxes. But actually, when somebody does come into your life and they're being nice and you've not been used to that before, that can also impact how the relationship then goes on. So we met, and at first it was a bit of a bumpy road. It was so lovely, but I was so terrified of, and I was also really terrified of other people making judgment that I'd found somebody so soon after having such a long relationship with my previous husband. I was externally, I didn't want people to judge me, but now looking back, that's because at that time I wasn't as well personally developed as I am now, and now I couldn't care less. I really don't care. I think if you find a good thing and it can bring you happiness, absolutely go for it, and don't be afraid to, because we only get one life and it's very short, so we massively deserve to be happy.
Absolutely. And I think that's really helpful to hear for many people, because learning to really allow someone to come into your world, I could imagine, that's a massive step.
Absolutely.
And you need to become more aware too that it is the hurt. It's not necessarily this person, but it is the hurt that is running the show at that point.
Absolutely. And that can so easily come in from out of nowhere. Like, I remember being a couple of years in to the relationship and had a kind of few months where I had this sudden rush of like guilt. Oh my goodness, I'm really happy. I almost got do they call it? I think it's called running anxiety, where you're all of a sudden you're just starting to feel anxious that something may go wrong because you're actually really happy.
Yeah.
And I'm laughing now, but at the time it was such a horrible thing. I think because when we first got together, it was such a transformational time for me, not only from the personal growth, but because I had to undergo life-saving surgery, and I actually had to go through 3 lots of surgery. To have that heaviness in such a young relationship can be troublesome, but yeah, I think I was trying to protect myself from maybe somebody not wanting to be supportive to me because I hadn't been used to it. Again, as usual, Martin was there for me and stood really strong, and for me and the children, and I'm so grateful for that.
Oh, that is so amazing. It sounds so amazing. So what about then today? You've been together for a long time. So in your busy schedules, how do you then maintain the relationship? How do you make sure that there's enough time for you and the family and everyone and everything? What's your kind of, I guess this is also, what are your best tips for anyone?
Absolutely. I think that's so important. And that's something that we've grown together and discovered along the way, because we've had a lot of children. We're a blended family. Between us, we have 5 children.
Wow.
Yeah. So lots of teenagers, 20 and a toddler. So as you can imagine, it's very demanding in and amongst kind of being mum and dad taxi and running people everywhere and the toddler duties and the waking up through the night. What we do every single week is we have a time together where we both cook, or one of us will cook for the other one. We take it in turns. For us, that's something we really enjoy. Sometimes it can be simple. We can just go out we're often out going for long walks along the local canal in the countryside. We are a little bit sports geeky. We like to be active quite often. So we challenge ourselves. We always try and book in a couple of challenges throughout the year where we know we're going to be working towards doing something. So that gives us motivation then to keep on going. And that's time away. Each time we go out walking or jogging, we're away from our mobile phones. We're away from the children for a short period. We take the toddler with us in the pram and stuff, but we do also arrange childcare. We're very limited on childcare, but when we do have childcare, we try and get away, perhaps maybe once a month. We go and spend a night away, just the 2 of us, and it's something that has evolved with us throughout the years. It's something that we've never given up on. It's something that we believe helps us recharge and recoup, and I get to be me as just me, Caroline. Martin gets to be him without being mum and dad and without being busy business owners. We just get to be there for each other, and that's something that we've always made sure 100% happens, and I'm really very proud of us for that.
That is so important, to have that shared time, because often what happens when people have children, whether it's from previous relationships or from the current relationship, and then how to navigate that, how to make sure that actually you show up for each other just as the 2 people and not in these other roles.
Absolutely. That's been a game changer compared to our previous relationships. That's been a big connector. It's been something that's brought us together and given us that time off to go and laugh at silly things and laugh at each other and just let off a bit of steam and just be really fully present with each other is massive for us.
Absolutely. So what about the women who you work with? What are the key things that you teach about really health and then creating more wealth even?
Initially they come to me more often than not for weight loss, and it's never that. It's actually much more than that. So they actually come thinking perhaps they've gained weight, or they're very disembodied, or because they're hitting burnout they've got a lot of kind of digestive issues. So first of all, we run checks on them straight away, find out if they've got any food sensitivities or allergies, and then we start to remove inflammation from the body, which is always transformational. And as we're doing that, they start to heal, not only on the outside, but on the inside. It sounds crazy, but people that come to me, I've got a huge list of people that have either written to me to say, thank you so much. Working with you has actually not only created physical health and happiness, but I've also been able to step into my biggest new promotion, or I've decided to give up on working in the corporate world and go self-employed and follow my passion. I've had ladies that have reunited with ex-partners because they've had confidence too. They felt really confident to do that. I've had ladies that have been married for 30 years that have rekindled their romance side. They're feeling confident and their self-love is flourishing. I've had ladies that have left partners that haven't been serving them, and they're finding themselves, they're doing the healing work that way. We have a community, it's called the Healthy Wealthy Goddess Club, and it's just where people come together, and it's just, I call it the sisterhood, because I don't have sisters and I don't have my mum anymore, so it's my female connection, and they come in and the stories are really amazing, the transformation's wonderful, and the wealth just comes from them being their true self. So they're able to, instead of hiding away when a promotion comes up, or not having the confidence to go for a new interview or change job, or perhaps they're not working, perhaps they're full-time mums and they're worried about getting back into the working, they don't have that confidence, then the wealth comes from them stepping up because they've done the inner work and they've lost weight, or they've sorted out their digestive issues, and they're feeling much better. A lot of them also are perimenopausal or menopausal, and it's helping them balance those hormones through food and different supplementation, so that they're feeling confident when they're showing up in work and that they're getting noticed for it.
Yes. Absolutely. Sounds so amazing, like really transformational work. And it starts from really looking inwards and giving yourself the best things in terms of nutrition, and everything else flows from there, really.
Yeah. And in a world where society throws so many different crazy diets out to us that actually create exhaustion and burnout and anxiety. And women don't know that until they come to me and we start having a consultation and they tell me what they've tried before. And I think, okay, they've probably got adrenal fatigue, or they're actually running on zero energy because they're actually they're depleted, or the thyroid's under functioning. All of these things are massive contributors to how they're showing up in their world right now. And just something like that can have such a massive impact on the relationships they have at home with their partners, and with the children and the family members and the friends. It's really transformational. Once you start to do the inner work and you really heal yourself from a health point of view, then your whole world transforms.
Absolutely. But if you were to give one tip, where could someone start this process for themselves when they now realize that actually something needs to happen? So what would be like the first step, first sort of point of call, really?
Yeah, absolutely. The first part of my coaching is I always say to them, okay, come on, you're going to be an investigator of your own life. What I want you to do, you just spend the next week having a look at your relationship with food. When you eat, are you rushing around? Are you rushing around with the children? Are you actually consciously eating, or are you subconsciously eating? What foods are you eating on a daily basis? What are you having alcohol? When are you having it? What time? Are you having enough hydration? Are you actually fueling yourself up with H2O? Because guess what? That's transformational too when you get that right. Are you living on caffeine? So when they start to do a full week's worth of just investigating themselves, the pieces start to come together and they start to identify they're actually running on a very fast-paced life, very disembodied from the body, and then they start to realize that something needs to change. So my first tip for anybody listening right now that's feeling disembodied, or feeling like they're not as healthy as they want to be, or not as confident as they want to be, is to do the inner work. Have a look. What are you doing on a daily basis? Because we're so busy riding the wave that we actually don't know our behavior. We don't have time to reflect on them.
Absolutely. I guess it's running on a treadmill that's a little bit on the too fast speed, and constantly just running and running and running. And whether you are in a corporate job or whatever is going on in your life, it's just the modern life is like that, where we live. We don't live in how we were designed to live in nature and live according to the sun and all of that kind of stuff. None of that. But yeah, absolutely. Starting to be curious about your life and what you're doing. And
yeah, like who actually knows? We're sat here now having a podcast technically, but in the world outside, what's the weather like? What's the sun doing right now? Is it even present? And what foods are naturally growing at this time of year? We're so used to having everything at the push of a button delivered to us that the antioxidants in foods are not what they used to be. So let's go out and find food sources that are actually, eat a little bit more organic. If you're looking for top tips, my top tips are eat raw foods, eat healthy foods, eat things that have grown and flown and swam in the sea, and just remove toxins, remove your digital devices, have a bit of a detox every night and you'll sleep better. Remove man-made caffeine products like coffee that's very heavy, and you'll soon start to feel much better when you do simple things, but really just tuning into Mother Nature and how she wanted it to be for us.
Yes, absolutely. I guess that's the curse of the modern world, that we are so disconnected from ourselves and from the Mother Nature.
Yeah, I call it Russian woman syndrome for my ladies. It's very true.
Absolutely. Exactly. So it's been so lovely to have this conversation with you. So if anyone wanted to know more about your work and everything that you do, what would be the best way to contact you?
Thank you so much. It's been lovely to be here. The best way to contact me is I'm officially Caroline Heaton Tate on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. I am also just reaching out onto TikTok, or you could contact me via my website, carolineheatontate.com.
Brilliant. And I'll put all of those details in the show notes, so they will be available there. But thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to have you here today.
Oh, it's been my pleasure too. Thank you so much for having me.
If you learned something new, please leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. That way other women like you can hear about this and learn, build a beautiful relationship wisdom. And please remember, give yourself the love you want first, and then you will attract the right person and the right relationship. Bye for now.